A day in the life of Alex, breaking the chains of stigma. Alex woke up in a room soaked in the dim morning light, but the atmosphere felt anything but calm. The weight of their depression settled on them like a thick quilt, heavy and suffocating. They glanced at the clock. It was time for work, another battlefield where emotional armor was mandatory. Alex pondered over breakfast. An act as mundane as pouring cereal felt like a mountain to climb. They thought about the stigma that circled mental health, like vultures over a carcass, in their workplace. At that meeting last week, they heard coworkers whispering, "Alex is just lazy, always missing deadlines." What those colleagues didn't know was that for Alex, even getting out of bed was a deadline. Suddenly, the phone buzzed. It was a text from their friend Jamie. "Hey, have you considered talking to a professional about what you're going through?" The message was well-meaning, but triggered thoughts of the countless hurdles in accessing mental health care, financial limitations, the fear of judgment, and the lack of culturally sensitive therapists all felt overwhelming. But Jamie's message also reminded Alex of their niece, Sarah, a high schooler already juggling with depression and the pressures of adolescence. Sarah was the face of millions of students who faced a lack of mental health resources in schools, a generation growing up even more disconnected from emotional well-being. While Alex loved their family dearly, they recognized how cultural perspectives influenced their struggle with depression. Alex grew up where mental health was rarely talked about. Each depressive episode felt like a family taboo. The roots of cultural stigma ran deep, reinforcing the chains of self-guilt. Still, the struggle was different, yet equally challenging for their friend, Chris, who was a part of the LGBTQ+ community. For Chris, depression was an additional layer atop the daily discrimination and emotional drain they faced. And while substance abuse was not Chris's choice, Alex knew many who turned to it as an escape, only to find themselves in a vicious cycle of heightened depression. It was a labyrinth of interconnected issues. Alex knew that even social media, that double-edged sword of connectivity and isolation, had played its part. Scrolling through perfectly curated lives heightened their sense of inadequacy, like rubbing salt in an open wound.
The melody of change. Ren sat alone in his small apartment, staring blankly at the white wall. The gray clouds outside the window mirrored his inner turmoil, a perfect synergy of desolation. The weight of his depression made even the simplest tasks monumental, an endless mountain he could never climb. Time passed, as it always did, but Ren felt frozen, unable to move forward. Until one Saturday morning, a knock came at his door. It was Ms. Eleanor, his elderly neighbor from across the hall. She was holding a loaf of freshly baked bread, wrapped delicately in a white cloth. "I thought you might need this," she said with a warm smile. "Call it neighborly love." Ren felt obligated to respond politely, but found the words stuck in his throat. Nevertheless, the unspoken sentiments exchanged were clear. Ms. Eleanor had lost her husband years ago. She understood the heaviness that life can bring. She wasn't there to give Ren a solution, but to tell him he was seen. For the first time in months, Ren felt a tiny spark, a warmth in his belly that dared to push against the dark fog surrounding him. The bread was delicious, but the gesture nourished him more. Weeks passed, and the spark stayed with him. It was faint, but present, an almost indiscernible ember in a night. But embers can start a fire, and Ren knew it was time to fan the flames. Ren dug out an old guitar from his closet, an instrument he hadn't touched for years. His fingers were rusty, and his voice wavered. But as he strummed the strings, he felt a melody form. It was a tune that resonated with his soul, a song of both sorrow and hope. Ms. Eleanor heard the music through the thin walls. She was captivated by it and knocked on his door again. This time, she was carrying a small potted plant. "A plant for your melody," she said. "Both need care to grow." That little potted plant took its place on Ren's windowsill, a silent witness to his changing world. Ren cared for the plant. He also evolved as it sprouted new leaves. The guitar became his therapy, each chord struck, blowing life into the dying embers within him. Ren began to share his music. Initially, I was with Ms. Eleanor, who sometimes joined in with her old harmonica. Eventually, he took the courage to upload a simple video online. The response was overwhelming. Messages flooded in, praising his music and sharing personal stories of how the melody gave people hope and lifted them from their pits of despair. On to the next.
A symphony of light. Silence. Laura was entangled in the dark web of depression. Colors of the world seemed muted, relationships a distant memory. She burned bridges with friends, and isolation grew heavier each day. Her phone lay beside her, a silent device bursting with unread messages and missed calls. What's the point? She thought. Everyone's words seemed empty, meaningless. Is this a midlife crisis? They say the isolation is a breeding ground for depression. The record. A knock on the door interrupted her solitude. It was a delivery man with a package, no name, just a note saying, "Play me." Intrigued, she played the vinyl record inside. A sad melody filled her room, capturing her pain yet freeing her from it. She wept, feeling seen and understood. The brush strokes. Something had shifted. Laura found herself reaching for her old paintbrushes. Her first piece was an abstract swirl of dark hues gradually leading to a burst of light. She named it Symphony of Light, inspired by the mysterious record. Laura felt invigorated as she shared her artwork with the world. She received a message almost instantly. It was Alex. "Your painting spoke to me," they said. "Would you like to meet?" The meeting. Feeling a twinge of excitement, Laura met Alex at a cafe. It was an immediate connection, two souls resonating at the same frequency. Alex shared their mental health struggles and how music was their lifeline, just as painting was for Laura. Could two different mediums tell the same story? Alex asked. Why not? Laura responded, her eyes sparkling. Epilogue. Months they were past. The duo created a collaborative exhibition featuring Laura's paintings alongside Alex's compositions. People felt an emotional resonance, a symphony of light in a world full of darkness. For Laura and Alex, it was a journey back to themselves. It was proof that a crack lets the light in even in the darkest corners of the mind. All it took was a mysterious record and a rediscovered paintbrush to remember life was worth living and loving. And so they did, live, love, and create. Together, they were a symphony of light, breaking the silence, one note, one stroke at a time. No matter how you are feeling, never give up. Reach out to someone.